What if I told you that there was once a girl whose heartbeat kept the sun alive? The day she was born, darkness swallowed an entire kingdom. The crops died, the rivers stopped singing, even the birds abandoned the skies. For 18 long years, the people of Umuola lived without seeing a single sunrise. They blamed the gods. They cursed the heavens, but they never knew the light they prayed for every morning was quietly living inside their own princess. This is the forgotten legend of the girl made of the sun. Welcome to Veloura Tales, where every tale feels alive, every legend carries a lesson, and every ending lingers in your heart long after the story is over. Tonight, let me tell you a story that has been whispered for generations. A story about love, sacrifice, and the light one girl. Long before roads were carved through forest, long before clocks measured time, long before anyone remembered the names of distant kingdoms, there stood a hidden land called Umuola. It rested between 7 emerald mountains so tall that their peaks disappeared into clouds. Crystal clear rivers once danced through the valleys, their water sparkling like scattered diamonds beneath the morning sun. Giant iroko trees stretched toward the heavens, their roots embracing the earth as though protecting the kingdom itself. Every dawn, golden sunlight poured across the hills, warming the faces of farmers as they sang while tending their fields. Children chased colorful butterflies through wildflower meadows, their laughter echoing across the land. At sunset, drums filled the air. Elders told stories beneath ancient trees, and families gathered around glowing fires to celebrate another peaceful day. The people often said, "As long as the sun smiles upon Umuola, no darkness shall ever conquer us." And for many generations, they believed it. At the heart of the kingdom stood a magnificent palace built from white stone and polished wood, crowned with golden roofs that shimmered beneath the sunlight. It was home to King Obiora and Queen Amara, rulers loved not because they were powerful, but because they ruled with kindness. Yet behind the palace walls, one silent sorrow followed them everywhere. Years passed, but the royal couple had no child. Every festival, the queen smiled. Every celebration, the king laughed. But when night came, their chambers echoed with prayers no one else could hear. For 15 long years, they begged the heavens for a child, never knowing that when the heavens finally answered, the gift would demand a price greater than anyone could imagine. The night the queen went into labor, the entire kingdom refused to sleep. From every corner of Umuola, villagers gathered outside the palace gates carrying baskets of fruit, flowers, and gifts for the child they had prayed 15 long years to see. The palace echoed with excitement. Women danced around blazing bonfires, singing ancient songs of blessing. Old men lifted their walking sticks toward the heavens, thanking the Creator for remembering their king. For the first time in many years, hope filled Umuola. Inside the royal chambers, however, hope wrestled with fear. Queen Amara cried out in pain as the royal midwives surrounded her, whispering words of encouragement. King Obiora paced outside the room, his hands shaking so badly that he could barely hold the wooden prayer beads passed down by his father. Every cry from the queen pierced his heart. Every passing moment felt like an entire year. Then, just before midnight, a baby's tiny body finally entered the world. The room became silent. The midwives looked at one another. No one smiled. No one spoke. The baby didn't cry. One of the elderly midwives rubbed the child's tiny chest. Another gently breathed into her mouth. Still, nothing. The little girl's body remained completely still. Outside, the celebration slowly faded into uneasy silence. King Obiora pushed open the palace doors. "What is happening?" he asked, his voice trembling. No one answered. The oldest midwife slowly placed the baby into his trembling arms. "My king, I'm sorry. She isn't breathing." The world around him seemed to stop. The prayer beads slipped from his fingers and scattered across the polished floor. He stared down at the tiny princess. Her peaceful face looked as though she was simply sleeping. He held her closer to his chest. "Please," he whispered through tears. "My daughter. Please. Don't leave us before I've even heard your voice." As the king's tears fell onto the baby's tiny forehead, a cold wind suddenly swept through the palace. Every candle went out. Outside, the villagers looked toward the sky. One by one, the stars disappeared. Then, for the first time since Umuola was founded, the sun never came. Morning arrived, but the sky remained black. Children cried, birds fell silent. The kingdom waited, 1 hour, then 2, then an entire day, yet dawn never came. Far away, deep inside the sacred forest, an old blind woman slowly opened her eyes and whispered, "The sun has made its choice."
For 7 days, Umuola never saw the sun. The fields that had once shimmered with golden maize stood cold and lifeless beneath an endless black sky. Rivers that once laughed over smooth stones flowed slowly, as though even the water had grown tired. Chickens refused to crow. Flowers never opened.
Children cried themselves to sleep, asking their mothers, "When will morning come?" But no one had an answer. Inside the palace, King Obiora had not slept since the princess was born. His tiny daughter still lay peacefully in a cradle carved from sacred Iroko wood. She looked alive, yet she never opened her eyes. She never cried. She never moved. The greatest healers came from distant kingdoms. They mixed powerful herbs. They spoke forgotten prayers. They burned sacred incense. Nothing changed. One by one, they all bowed before the king. "My king, we have failed." Hope was slipping away. Then, on the 7th night, just as the palace bells struck midnight, the guards rushed into the throne room. "My king, there's an old woman at the gate. She insists the heavens sent her." The guards led in a frail blind woman wrapped in a faded white cloth. Though her eyes were clouded with age, she walked through the palace as though she could see every corner. She stopped before the king. Without asking permission, she stretched out her wrinkled hands toward the silent princess. A warm golden glow flickered around the child's tiny body, then disappeared. The old woman sighed. "The child is not dying," she whispered. "The child is not dying." King Obiora stepped forward. Waiting for what? The old woman slowly lifted her face toward the dark heavens. "For the one who owns the light." Silence filled the throne room. "There is only one place where your daughter can be saved. The land of sun and shadows." The room erupted in fear. The royal advisors exchanged frightened glances. One old chief dropped his staff. "My king, no human returns from that place." The blind woman nodded. "Many have searched for it. Many have vanished. But only a father who loves more than he fears will be allowed to enter." King Obiora looked down at his sleeping daughter. Then he wrapped her gently in a cloth of pure white silk. He kissed Queen Amara's forehead. "I will bring our daughter home, or I will never return." At the first sound of dawn that never came, the palace gates slowly opened. The king mounted his great white horse. With his daughter cradled against his chest, he rode alone into the sacred forest. Behind him, the people of Umuola knelt in silence. No drums, no songs, only prayers. Because everyone knew, he was riding toward a place spoken of only in legends. A place where the sun itself was said to breathe. After 3 days and 3 nights, the forest suddenly ended. Before King Obiora stood 2 enormous golden gates floating in the air. One gate blazed with brilliant sunlight. The other was covered in endless shadow. As he took one careful step forward, a voice echoed across the heavens. "Mortal king, why have you come to my land?"
The voice roared across the heavens like distant thunder, shaking the mountains beneath King Obiora's feet. "Mortal king, Why have you entered the land of sun and shadows? King Obiora slowly climbed down from his horse, never taking his eyes off the floating gates before him. His daughter remained silent in his arms. Her tiny body felt colder than the night itself. The king fell to one knee. I have not come seeking riches. I have not come seeking power. I have not come seeking immortality. His voice broke. I have come as a father. The wind stopped.
Even time itself seemed to hold its breath. Slowly, the gate of sunlight opened. A brilliant golden path stretched across the endless sky. King Obiora stepped onto it. With every step, the darkness beneath his feet disappeared. Flowers of pure light bloomed wherever he walked. Birds made entirely of glowing fire flew peacefully overhead. Golden rivers flowed through the clouds. The air smelled of fresh rain and wild honey. It was the most beautiful place any human had ever seen. At the end of the path sat a magnificent throne carved entirely from living light. Upon it rested a figure impossible to describe. His skin shimmered like molten gold. His long hair flowed like streams of sunlight. His eyes held every sunrise the world had ever known. Around his head floated a crown made from blazing rays that never burned. This was the keeper of the sun. King Obiora lowered his head immediately. No human could bear looking into such glory for long. The ancient being smiled. You have traveled farther than any father before you. You crossed fear. You crossed death. You crossed hope. Tell me, why should I save this child? King Obiora carefully placed the tiny princess upon the golden floor. Then, for the first time in his life, the mighty king cried openly. My kingdom can survive without me. My throne can belong to another. My name can be forgotten. But, he looked at the sleeping baby. I cannot bury my daughter before hearing her laugh. Silence. The sun watched him for what felt like forever. Then, the ancient being stood. He walked slowly toward the child. As he knelt beside her, something extraordinary happened. The princess's tiny fingers moved. For the very first time, the sun smiled. This child carries a heart too pure to return to the earth. He gently placed his glowing hand over the baby's chest. Golden light poured from his palm like liquid sunrise. The child's body floated gently into the air. Her tiny chest
rose, then fell, then rose again. Suddenly, a sound echoed across the land of sun and shadows. A baby's cry, the first cry she had ever made. King Obiora fell to the ground, overwhelmed with joy. My daughter, my little sunshine! He reached toward her, but the sun raised a hand. Not yet. The golden light around the child slowly faded. Her once dark eyes opened. They now glowed like molten gold. The sun's warm smile disappeared. His voice became solemn. I have given her my own light, but every gift demands a promise. The air grew heavy. From this day forward, your daughter shall carry a piece of the sun within her, so long as she lives. The world will know no sunrise. King Obiora's smile vanished. And hear this carefully. The sun
eyes blazed brighter than ever. No flame born from human hands shall ever touch her. The day fire recognizes the light I placed within her. I will reclaim my gift. And only then shall the sun return to your kingdom. The king's heart sank. He understood. To save his daughter, his people would live in darkness. To save his people, he would one day lose his daughter. The sun gently lifted the baby into her father's arms. Choose wisely, King Obiora. For every father who keeps a miracle must one day learn how to let it go. With a wave of the sun's hand, the golden world dissolved into countless rays of light. King Obiora felt the ground beneath his feet once more. He was back at the edge of the sacred forest. The palace stood in the distance. His daughter stirred in his arms, opened her glowing golden eyes, and for the very first time, she smiled. King Obiora kept every promise he had made to the sun. When he returned to Umuola, the palace was transformed overnight. Every candle, every torch, every lantern, every cooking fire was moved far away from the princess's chambers. The entire eastern wing of the palace became her home, where no human flame was ever allowed to burn. Instead, mirrors carved from polished silver reflected the faint glow that escaped from her tiny golden eyes, lighting her rooms with a gentle warmth unlike anything anyone had ever seen. The royal family told everyone the same story. The princess was born with a rare illness. Bright light weakens her, and fire could take her life. No one questioned the king. No one knew the truth. Years slipped away like leaves carried by the wind. The tiny baby became a beautiful young woman. Her name was Princess Adesuwa. She possessed skin that seemed to glow softly beneath the darkness, long ebony hair that flowed to her waist. Dawn, though she had never seen a sunrise herself. She was gentle. She was wise. She loved flowers. She loved books. She loved listening to birds, even though fewer and fewer returned to the kingdom each year. Yet, she carried one sadness that never left her heart. She was always alone. She often stood beside the palace window, staring into the endless darkness that covered Umuola. Sometimes she would ask her father, "Father, what does morning look like?" The question pierced King Obiora's heart every single time. He forced a smile. "It is beautiful." She smiled back. "I hope I see it one day." The king quickly looked away before she noticed the tears gathering in his eyes. "You will." He lied softly. "You will." Outside the palace walls, life had become harder with every passing year. The endless darkness destroyed harvest after harvest. Farmers planted seeds that never grew. The rivers became thinner. Children often went to bed hungry. Many families abandoned Umuola, believing the kingdom had been cursed by angry gods. Those who remained whispered frightening stories. Some blamed the king. Others blamed the spirits. A few even blamed the unseen princess who was never allowed outside the palace. "The royal family is hiding something," they murmured. "If only we knew the truth." But no one did. Princess Adesuwa herself believed she was simply a sick young woman whose father loved her too much to let her live. She dreamed of walking through the marketplace. She dreamed of feeling rain on her face. She dreamed of running across green fields she had only read about in old storybooks. Most of all, she dreamed of seeing the sun. Every night before she slept, she whispered the same prayer. "Creator, if I am truly sick, please let me become well, so I can see the world everyone talks about." Far beyond the palace walls, another child was growing into adulthood. A boy named Obina. Unlike the princess, Obina knew hunger. He knew loss. He knew what it meant to bury the people he loved because the land could no longer feed them. He watched his father grow weak. He watched his mother give the last bowl of food to his younger sister. He watched them all disappear one after another. Standing alone beside three simple graves beneath an ancient Iroko tree, Obina made a promise to himself. He wiped away his tears and looked toward the distant palace. "I don't know why this darkness came, but I will find out. Even if I have to search every corner of this kingdom." That single promise would one day change the fate of Umuola forever. Obina kept his promise. While others accepted the darkness as fate, he refused to believe the Creator would abandon an entire kingdom without a reason. Every morning, while the village still slept beneath the endless night, he wandered through forgotten caves, abandoned shrines, ancient forests, and broken temples searching for answers. He spoke with wandering storytellers. He listened to old hunters. He sat beside forgotten grandmothers who remembered legends no one else believed anymore. Most laughed at him. Others warned him. Some secrets, an old hunter once said, were buried because they were never meant to be found. But Obina refused to stop. Years passed. He learned to read ancient symbols carved into sacred stones. He learned the old language spoken before Umuola had kings. He studied every legend ever written about light. The moon, the stars, and the sun. One rainy evening, while exploring the abandoned shrine of the first kings, his foot struck something beneath the cracked stone floor. Curious, he pushed away the dust. There, hidden beneath hundreds of years of forgotten history, was a bronze ring fixed into the ground. With all his strength, he pulled. The earth groaned. A massive stone door slowly slid open. Cold air rushed upward. Obina picked up his lantern and climbed carefully down the narrow staircase. The deeper he went, the older the walls became. Strange golden markings covered every surface. Then, he reached a circular chamber unlike anything he had ever seen. In the center stood a stone altar. Upon it rested a single scroll wrapped in faded golden cloth. Its seal bore the royal symbol of Umuola. His heart pounded. With trembling hands, he carefully opened it. The parchment was old, far older than the kingdom itself. Most of the words had faded, but one sentence remained as clear as the day it was written. When the daughter of the sun walks among men, the kingdom shall know endless night. Obina froze. His breathing became uneven. He continued reading. She carries the light of heaven. Therefore heaven shall keep its light until it is returned. His lantern almost slipped from his hand. His mind raced. The daughter of the sun. The royal family. The hidden princess. For the first time, the impossible began to make sense. The darkness. The king's silence. The mysterious princess no one had ever truly seen. Obina looked toward the palace standing far above the hills. His voice became barely a whisper. It isn't a curse. It never was. The light has been inside the palace all along. For a long moment, he simply stood there, staring at the ancient scroll. Then he carefully rolled it shut, tucked it inside his bag, and climbed back into the cold night. As he looked toward the distant palace glowing faintly against the darkness, he made another promise. No matter what secret the king has hidden, I'm going to uncover it. And for the first time in 18 years, hope returned to his heart.
The next morning, Obina stood outside the palace gates for the very first time. The towering walls of white stone stretched high into the darkness, guarded by soldiers dressed in shining bronze armor. I wish to see the princess, he said calmly. The guards burst into laughter. And I wish to sit on the king's throne, one of them mocked. Go home, boy. But Obina refused to leave. Every sunrise that never came, he returned. Every night, he waited, for 7 days. On the 8th day, Princess Adesuwa noticed him from her balcony. Who is that young man? She asked her maid. He has been standing there every day. The maid looked down. They say he's a stubborn villager, Your Highness. He keeps asking to see you. Adesuwa smiled softly. Perhaps he simply needs someone to listen. That evening, she slipped quietly into the palace gardens, wearing a simple blue cloak that hid her royal identity. There, beneath an ancient baobab tree, she found Obina. He was staring at the sky, or rather, at the darkness where the sky should have been. You've been looking for me, she said gently. Obina turned. For a moment, he forgot how to breathe. Her eyes, they glowed softly like liquid gold, not frightening, not unnatural, beautiful, as though tiny suns lived within them. You, he whispered, you really are the princess. She smiled. I am. But I don't understand why you've come. Obina hesitated. Every word he was about to speak could change her life forever. I came because your kingdom is dying. Her smile disappeared. I know. I pray for my people every night. No, Obina shook his head slowly. You don't understand. The kingdom isn't dying because the gods abandoned it. It isn't cursed. He looked directly into her golden eyes. It is suffering. Because of you. The princess stepped backwards. Confusion filled her face. What are you talking about? I've never hurt anyone. I've never even left this palace. Obina reached into his satchel. He carefully removed the ancient scroll. I didn't believe it either. Until I found this. She unfolded the fragile parchment with trembling fingers. Her eyes scanned the faded words. At first, she frowned. Then, her breathing became uneven. Her hands began to shake. She read the words again and again. Then one sentence caught her heart. She carries the light of heaven, therefore heaven shall keep its light until it is returned. A tear rolled slowly down her cheek. She looked up at Obina. My father, she whispered. He knew. Obina lowered his head. I think he has always known. Suddenly, every memory rushed back to her. Why candles were never allowed near her. Why she was forbidden to leave the palace. Why her father always cried whenever she asked about the sunrise. It had never been because she was sick. It had been because he loved her too much to lose her. The truth broke her heart. For several minutes, neither of them spoke.
Only the wind moved gently through the palace gardens. Finally, Adesuwa looked toward the sleeping kingdom beyond the palace walls. She imagined the hungry children, the empty farms, the mothers who cried every night. Then she whispered, almost to herself, so while I have been living, my people have been slowly dying. Obina said nothing. There was nothing left to say. The princess closed her eyes. Another tear slipped down her face. And for the first time in her life, she understood why the palace had always felt like a prison. Not because her father wanted to keep her inside, but because he was trying to protect the only daughter he could never bear to lose.
Princess Adesuwa did not sleep that night. She sat alone beside her palace window, staring into the endless darkness that had covered Umuola for 18 years. For the first time, she understood why the kingdom was silent, why children went hungry, why mothers prayed with empty hands. The light that should have belonged to everyone had been living inside her all along. As the first birds began to sing beneath a sky that still held no dawn, Adesuwa quietly left her room. She wore a simple white gown, no crown, no jewels, only the small golden necklace her mother had placed around her neck when she was a baby. She walked through the silent palace corridors until she reached the Hall of Eternal Flames. At the center of the hall stood a single ancient lamp. It had remained unlit for 18 years. The palace priests had obeyed the king's command. No human flame had ever been allowed near the princess. Adesuwa stood before it. Her fingers trembled, not because she feared death, but because she would never see her father again. Footsteps echoed behind her. Adesuwa. King Obiora's voice shook the palace walls. He had awakened to find her room empty. When he entered the hall and saw her standing before the sacred lamp, his face turned pale. No, he whispered, please, not like this. He hurried toward her, tears already streaming down his face. You know the truth. She nodded slowly. I do. The king fell to his knees before his daughter. I have already lost 18 years with my people. I cannot lose you too. Adesuwa knelt beside him. She gently held his weathered hands. You never chose the kingdom over me. You chose to save your child. And every day since then, you've carried that pain alone. King Obiora broke down completely. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She smiled through her tears. There is nothing to forgive. You gave me life. Now, it is my turn to give life back. She kissed her father's forehead, the same way he had kissed hers every night since she was born. Then she stood. Obina stepped forward. His eyes were filled with tears. There must be another way. Adesuwa looked at him and smiled. If there is, the sun would have shown it to us. She reached out and gently held his hand. Promise me something. Obina nodded, unable to speak. When the children of Umuola laugh beneath the morning sky, tell them, I love them. Even before I knew them, unable to hold back his tears, Obina whispered, "I promise." Adesuwa turned toward the ancient lamp. She picked up the forgotten torch resting beside it. For one final moment, she closed her golden eyes. Then, she lit the flame. The instant the fire touched the lamp, a blinding golden light burst from her body. The palace shook, the heavens roared. Golden rays spiraled upward, piercing the endless darkness that had imprisoned the sky for nearly 2 decades. King Obiora screamed his daughter's name and ran toward her. But the light was too powerful. It lifted Adesuwa gently into the air. She wasn't afraid. She was smiling, as though she were finally going home. Slowly, her body dissolved into thousands of tiny golden lights that floated higher and higher until they disappeared into the heavens. Silence. Then, rain. Soft, gentle, beautiful rain began falling across Umuola. For the first time in 18 years, the cracked earth drank deeply. The rivers began to flow again. Flowers opened. Birds returned. Children rushed from their homes, laughing as cool raindrops kissed their faces. Then, the clouds slowly parted. A single golden ray of sunlight touched the hills. Another followed, then another, until the entire kingdom was bathed in the most beautiful sunrise anyone had ever seen. People fell to their knees in amazement. Some laughed, some cried, some simply stood in silence, unable to believe what their eyes were seeing. King Obiora walked slowly outside the palace. The warm sunlight touched his face. He looked toward the heavens. Through his tears, he smiled. "My little sunshine, you finally saw the morning." Years later, the kingdom of Umuola flourished once again. Its rivers overflowed with life. Its fields turned green. Its children grew strong beneath the warmth of the sun. Near the palace gardens, where Princess Adesuwa had last stood, a single golden flower bloomed. It never withered, it never faded. The people believed it was her final gift to the kingdom she loved. And every morning, as the first rays of sunlight touched that golden flower, the elders would smile and tell their children, "Never measure greatness by how long someone lives. Measure it by how many lives they brighten. For the brightest light is the one willing to shine for others." Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, share for more interesting stories.